I did want to talk about some more about how to create a life for yourself and a perfect life for yourself and whatnot. And I wanted to take some verses out of the Bible, John's Gospel, I should say. Sorry, oops, pardon me. I don't want to get in trouble with those people who are politically correct when it comes to the organized religion of the world. That's foolish on my part. I shouldn't be mocking anybody or making fun of anything. John's Gospel. To me, I think John's Gospel is the epitome of spiritual awakening. And the John's Jesus Christ, where you come to that awakening, is very powerful and resonates so much with what you truly are and the discovery of what you truly are. I think John's Gospel is just poetically perfect. It's all poetry, all of it, great majority of it. Some of the narration here and there kind of kind of dwindles off the path of poetry and whatnot, but it is poetry. And yes, it is something that I heard along the lines in my spiritual awakening, investigating what people had to say about the Gospels and whatnot, and how some people, editors, I don't know, publishers, whatnot, people who are familiar with writing and the art of writing, consider it poetic. And I happened to look into that. And following some of their guidelines and some of what they considered poetry and whatnot in the Bible, and especially with John's Gospel, I tend to concur. I think it's a very poetic book. I wanted to use something from there, but I'm going to save it. I think I'm going to save it for the next episode. I think I just want to spend some time and talk about how I see a difference between the Gospels. Mark's, to me, seems pretty much a kind of a quick run through of the experience one is having and the awakening of Jesus Christ in them. Matthew's seems to be a little bit more, I don't know, I have this sense in Matthew when I'm reading it at times that it tends to be trying too hard. It seems almost like Matthew has tried to get this message out over and over and over and over and over again. And what he finally left us with, there's a sense of it being off. In the sense there seems to be a little bit of a disturbance, maybe possibly anger or a slight resentment in Matthew's narrative. Luke's seems to be more of a academic score, to be honest with you. It seems to be more literary. It seems to be more educational, having come from some sort of educational background. And yet we are told that these authors, whoever these authors are and whatnot, were illiterate and were not educated people. And you can see it. Again, this coming from the scholars who have studied the notes and compared literature of the time and compared educated literature with just journaling and whatnot. But I think Luke's gospel is very educational, and I think it caters more to those who have an interest in academic artistic approach, using words in a way and having a vocabulary. I'm not going to say Luke has a large vocabulary, but he definitely has a vocabulary. To me, it seems to me like his words are a relationship that is a bond of and a companionship of literature and some sense of education. Now, I don't know. I'm not a scholar. I'm not educated in this. This is a lot of stuff. Some of the research I did when I was exploring the Bible and when I decided to wander, and see what the scholars and what the theologians and what the education system and the sleepwalk of the world has to say about it. Some of their points are valid. Now, I know a lot of people, as I said, don't think that Luke is very educated, although there is enough of an education in him to consider it to be one of the most educational or best written literary styles of the Gospels. Oh, I should mention something about Luke's Jesus Christ. I think Luke's Jesus Christ also is a very documented. Documented. It was carefully put together. It was almost as if Luke had journaled his whole experience, or the whole experience of Jesus Christ, and went back into his notes and was able to use his notes as a reference. And it seems that he got everything that he considers to be right. And I can't help but feel that there is a sense of some sort of accompaniment to the final draft that we have of that we were given, I should say, of Luke's gospel. It seems almost to me that especially the artistic style of the literature, the art of it, and putting the words together, and how Luke speaks and makes his narrative and narration throughout the gospel, it seems to me that there was an accompaniment, and that accompaniment wasn't maybe someone else, or maybe it could have been. Maybe he's documenting somebody's case who kept notes of their spiritual awakening and what happened to them. But I think that as he was going through this and investigating possibly the changes that were taking place within him and what was happening within him, he did, like I did, and so many other people did, started jotting things down and keeping them on paper or at hand. And then when he felt the time was right, when he was putting this gospel together, decided that, he would refer to the notes that he had. That's the sense that I get. Now, I can easily say that they borrow from one another. Luke, Matthew, Mark, John, they all borrowed from one another. Luke and Mark seems to be the consensus with the scholars and whatnot, that they borrowed from one another. Matthew borrowed from Mark, and so on and so forth. There seems to be a lot of agreement with the borrowing. I really don't even care about that stuff, to be honest with you. I don't care who borrowed from who. I don't care how it was done. I do understand that it is an unfolding and an unraveling of an experience that takes place in your life when you come to that point in your life and you have that awakening. John's Jesus Christ, on the other hand, I feel is the completion of your awakening. The understanding of the Jesus Christ, realizing the Spirit of God is in you, walking the best that you can in the world in the Spirit of God as Jesus Christ and the Jesus Christ that you truly are. And I think John's is the greater gospel out of all of them, because I think all the other gospels give you a Jesus Christ that is speaking to you. And John gives you a Jesus Christ that is speaking from you. That is the complete awakening and transformation. That's my opinion. That's what I think. I did, like I said, have prepared something here for today, but I wanted to spend some time and just kind of explore this and how I see it and what it means to me. And I find that Paul, again, given to us by Luke in the book of Acts, is a prime example of the further developing of your spiritual nature, the confusion that comes along with it, the opposition and the wandering that can get in the way. Because you see this with Paul, but you don't see this with Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John's Jesus Christ. Oh yeah, you see very human moments in their Jesus Christ. One minute he's running off, doesn't want to be killed. The next minute he's confronting people and then disappearing. You see very human elements, because as I said, you're still human. Possibly the most human nature in anyone that can show us the battles and the back and forth with spirituality is Paul. Paul is the prime example of a human being who 1 minute speaks from his spiritual side and then turns around and says, I speak to you from as a man's perspective now. He's confronting people about this and that, even those that he considers apostles. And then he is doubling back and saying, something that he should have realized all along while he was doing the confrontation, is forgiveness. Paul is the prime example of every single one of us in our spiritual awakening. When we have those moments of the Jesus Christ we are, and that is awakened in us, walking in the world, and sometimes spiritually aware and awake as to what is going on, and other times being confused by the elements and the factors and the things that take place in the world and around us. I don't believe that you can ever get lost, especially when you come to that second coming, the second awakening, that second revelation and final revelation of what you truly are. I don't think you can ever go back from your wandering, but you can get lost, as you see with Paul. Paul had 2 spiritual awakenings, and Paul often got things right, got things wrong, was off here in one moment, and then way out in left field the next moment. And this is not a shot at Paul, because I truly respect Paul and think Paul is one of the greatest pieces of art that has been given to us, to be honest with you. And it is also a very informative psychological outlook on the human behavior and human nature going into a spiritual awakening and trying to develop that spiritual nature that they truly are, and finding the challenges and the oppositions and the obstacles in the world that have them going back and forth and out far right field one moment and out far in the left field the next moment. Everyone will experience this, and everyone will go through this. There is no such thing as perfection and walking in the world. As I said, if you look at Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John's Jesus Christ, there are plenty of imperfection moments in their Jesus Christ, showing you they couldn't handle this situation here, showing you they had to have the last word here and then disappear and run off, showing you the human element and the spiritual element trying to work together, and it being a very complicated mechanical process, literally, a mechanical process, because you're automatic in your spiritual nature and what you want to do, but you're not accepted in the natural world of the things you are doing and saying. And that mechanism flipping back and forth is the conflict between spirituality and your natural expression in the world. Your physical expression, I should say, in the world. Your natural expression is spiritual. Everybody is spiritual. But your physical expression in the world of the spiritual being that you truly are. I think Paul is one of the greatest examples of this challenge and this battle, written in a way to make you see the Jesus Christ in Paul, no different than Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John's Jesus Christ. And also to show you the Jesus Christ struggles in the world, even through this transformative change and walking in the Spirit, still facing the obstacles, being confused by the obstacles, confusing yourself with what you said one minute and did the next minute, and so on and so forth. But you will never, ever lose that spiritual self. You can never be confused enough. You can never wander too far. You can never veer off the track, especially after your second spiritual awakening. But you can still be blinded. You can still be confused. You can still have moments of flying off the handle and then grounding yourself again. There is no such thing as perfection with anything that has been given to us from a humanly experience, from a human experience. Even if that experience is the awakening of Jesus Christ in you and you are walking as the spiritual person that you truly are. So don't kid yourself, and don't listen to foolish people tell you this is the way to walk in the Jesus Christ that you truly are. There is no such thing as perfection. And like I said, there's plenty moments in your Gospels where you could see the imperfection of someone you consider to be perfect. He is perfect in every sense, and he is telling you what perfection is. He is also showing you examples that in the world it is very difficult for that perfection to have a life, to have a home. There's always going to be an imbalance. But through all that, it is showing you that there is in you perfection, absolute perfection. And you are perfect. And every single person in this world is perfect. There is a part of them, there is a spiritual part of them that they haven't come to yet that is untouched, unblemished, completely perfect. That's what the Gospels are showing you, is the perfection of what you truly are, spiritual. And there is no imperfection with spirit, or the Spirit of God that awakens in you, and the Jesus Christ that you discover you are. Paul is a prime example of the discovery of the Jesus Christ that you are, and showing you that living in his world, he faced the conflicts and opposition, regardless of all the revelations that he had, regardless of all the understanding and faith that he had, regardless of everything that he had, he still was part of that human nature. And he still went back and forth. And that is another example that is clear as day, because it's not clear as day because we fabricated some of the nonsense involved with the Gospels and made someone seem that they have surpassed the glory of God, when we are told that no one, not a single person has achieved perfection, we've all fallen short of the glory of God. That's what I wanted to say. We've all fallen short of the glory of God. And that includes all the examples of awakening. That includes the testimonies and testifying of a spiritual awakening and the Jesus Christ awakening in you. That does not excuse you and make you superhuman so that you can surpass everybody in this world. It is showing you, and you are understanding through this awakening process, that there is a greater you than the you that you were in the world. At the same time, it is also telling you, don't forget, you're still part of the world, and you are going to face conflicts, and there's going to be imperfections, and you are supposed to deliberately fall short of the glory of God in order to understand what you truly are. And even understanding this, you still fall short of the glory of God. But now, this can't be taken from you. This can't be robbed from you. And it is up to you what you do with it. If you want to go into the circles of, say, religion and the scholars and whatnot and bash heads with them, you're going to find yourself with the imperfections of your human nature. And they're going to confuse you, and you're going to be confused. You're going to lose some of that belief that you once had when you came into your spiritual awakening. Not worldly belief, but belief of you. And then you will recapture it again, and you will find it again. You never, ever lose it. But human nature and spiritual nature are separated on purpose. And there is opposition on purpose. And the opposition is that the human nature cannot see what spiritual nature is showing it, what it is revealing to it, what it is producing of that human, male, female, who has had the experience of awakening. You can go into the world and you can speak about it and you can talk to people and you will gain a few people, and a few people understand, and maybe a few people, maybe some people could even have a spiritual awakening through that. You don't know how a spiritual awakening happens. Someone could absolutely resonate with your message. Someone could have had a spiritual glimpse, and you talking about your spiritual experiences coincides with that person. They decide to investigate the things that you were saying, watch a few of your videos and whatnot, and maybe they have a spiritual awakening. But there's no guarantee that that's going to happen either, because no one can tell you how it's going to happen. No one can tell you when it's going to happen. No one can tell you why it happens. All I can tell you is when you come to the understanding of your spiritual nature, when you have your spiritual birth, when you have union with God, you discover that this was the plan you set in motion all along. This is what you gave yourself to experience of human nature, knowing you can defeat it through your spiritual nature. Now, you have defeated it through your spiritual nature, and you found the perfection that you truly are. But as I said, when you go back and forth, you will find the imperfection. You will find the confusion. You will find the battles that you really shouldn't be fighting, and realize that you've spoken out of turn. Realize that you did not see the Jesus Christ in the other who is asleep, and considered to bash heads with them. Matthew's Jesus Christ seems a little bit forced and a little bit of resentment here and there. Mark's seems like Mark was just excited about this, jotted down whatever he could, and got it out of his hair. You know what I mean? Luke's seems to be a very artistic approach in an academic way of presenting the experience that possibly Luke faced, that Luke had. I'm of the mind that I think that these authors of the Gospels were sharing their own experiences. And I do believe there is a sequence that is involved here. And like I said, I think Mark's was very quick. When you discover what Mark is saying, what Mark is doing, you recognize it in Matthew, but you also understand that possibly in Matthew there's a slight disturbance. And then you see it in Luke, and you see that Luke and Mark are the same way, but Luke has decided to incorporate some of an artistic flair to the way that he is explaining things and talking about things, and it almost seems like it's very educational. And then you come to John's, then this is the way I break it down anyways, and I come to John, where you realize that this is the final step. And when you come to John's, you are John's Jesus Christ. All along, you have been listening to Jesus Christ tell you about the Jesus Christ in you. And then you come to John's gospel and you realize that you are the Jesus Christ of John's gospel. So all along you've been hearing, I am, I am, I am. You come to John's gospel and all of a sudden you are. And you stand knowing I am means you are. That's how I have broken it down. And then one of the greatest examples of that, of the Jesus Christ awakening in you, is Paul. And no matter how perfect and how wonderful and beautiful Paul spoke about faith and love and hope and forgiveness and all that, there were so very many challenges that you could see the imperfection of the human nature. And more than anything, it's the imperfection of thinking that spiritual nature can conquer the human nature. And it's not that it can't conquer it, it's that you have already conquered it. But by going back into it, you are going to face challenges and confusions and whatnot, and show the imperfections of your human nature. As Paul says, I'll find if I sin or whatnot, and I don't have it pulled up here, but I'll go back into the law and find a law that coincides with that sin, because I know with the mind I sin, and I'm going to pull it up and put it right here for you guys. But I thought, rather than going into what I really wanted to talk about today, about fruit and how it's incorporated into manifestation and the greater meaning other than creating yourself through creating the life that you want through the creative power, I decided I wanted to spend a little time here and kind of explore and share my views of the Gospels and the Bible. And this is an exhaustive kind of conversation or video or some sort of podcast to put forth, because I haven't even touched upon some of the greatest examples in the Old Testament. I haven't even touched upon other things. I'm just using the example of awakening and the Spirit of God awakening in you, which is Jesus Christ, and recognizing the Jesus Christ that you are, and kind of sharing how the sense that I get when I am reading the Gospels and what they mean to me. And before I leave, I'm just going to say this one more time. I think Matthew, Mark, Luke give you a Jesus Christ that is trying to wake up the Jesus Christ in you. And John gives you a Jesus Christ that is already woken up. Matthew, Mark, and Luke, I find, are talking to you about your spiritual nature. in the divinity and immortality that you truly are. And I find John is talking from you. John is talking from you awake, fully awake, completely understanding the Jesus Christ that you truly are. This is Nick. This is Tea Talk. Thanks for stopping by. See you guys next time.